You are completely wrong about existence. You probably think the past is gone and the future hasn't happened yet. You imagine that only this moment, right now, is real. You think your grandmother who died 10 years ago has ceased to exist, that her memories, her laughter, her unique way of seeing the world have simply vanished from reality. But that isn't how existence works. That's just a temporal prejudice, a biological illusion that has absolutely nothing to do with how reality actually operates. Most people walk around with this linear idea in their heads that existence flows like a river. They picture moments being created, experienced briefly, then dissolved into nothingness. They think the present moment is special, the only slice of time that truly exists. But here is the problem with that beautiful intuition. Physics doesn't support it. Einstein's relativity doesn't allow it. And according to Sabine Hossenfelder's research on the block universe, the past is just as real as this moment you're experiencing right now. The truth is much stranger, much more permanent, and honestly a lot more comforting than temporal dissolution. Past events don't disappear into nothingness. Dead relatives don't cease to exist. And if you think the present moment is the only real slice of time, you are about to discover some very profound truths about the nature of existence itself. In the book Existential Physics, tackles what she calls the physics of dead grandmothers. This isn't morbid speculation. This is serious investigation into what Einstein's theory of relativity tells us about the persistence of information, the block structure of spacetime, and the timeless nature of existence. When our grandparents die, Hossenfelder explains, information about them becomes irretrievable. We can't communicate with them. Nevertheless, if you trust the mathematics, the information is still there, somewhere, somehow, spread out over the entire universe, but preserved forever. This isn't wishful thinking or spiritual speculation. This is what emerges from taking Einstein's relativity seriously. If space-time is a four-dimensional block where all moments exist equally, then your grandmother's life isn't gone. It's just located at different coordinates in the time dimension. Think about it this way. You don't think Paris ceases to exist just because you're currently in New York. Distance in space doesn't make distant places less real. According to the block universe, distance in time doesn't make past moments less real either. I have to admit, Hossenfelder writes, that I personally find it really hard to make intuitive sense of it. But as a physicist, I trust the process of knowledge discovery that comes from using the scientific method. To understand why the past still exists, we need to examine what Einstein discovered about the nature of simultaneity and the block structure of spacetime. Before Einstein, everyone shared the same universal now. If something happened on Earth at 3 p.m., then simultaneously, at that exact same moment, it was 3 p.m. everywhere in the universe. Time was like a cosmic metronome keeping the same beat for everyone. Einstein shattered this comfortable assumption. He showed that now is relative. Your now and my now are different if we're moving relative to each other. What you consider to be happening right now in a distant galaxy is different from what I consider to be happening right now in that same galaxy. This leads to what physicists call the block universe or eternalism. All moments in time, past, present, and future, exist equally. They're all equally real, just located at different positions in four-dimensional space-time. There is no basis, as Hossenfelder explains, for singling out a present time that separates the past from the future because all times coexist with equal status. Think of spacetime like a loaf of bread. Each slice represents a moment in time. From our perspective inside the loaf, we experience moving from slice to slice. But from outside, from what physicists call the block perspective, all slices exist simultaneously. Your birth, your childhood, this moment reading these words, and your eventual death are all equally real slices in the space-time loaf. They're just located at different temporal coordinates. The psychological experience of flowing time is like being a character in a movie who can only see one frame at a time. The character feels like the story is unfolding moment by moment, but the entire movie, beginning, middle, and end, exists simultaneously on the film reel. But our research goes deeper than just the geometric structure of space-time. She examines what physics tells us about information conservation and the fundamental laws that govern reality. The laws of physics are time reversible. They don't destroy information, they just rearrange it. Every particle interaction, every field fluctuation, every change in the universe simply moves information from one configuration to another, but the total information content is preserved. The only thing that physical laws do, Hossenfelder explains, is that they rearrange the matter and radiation and everything that's in the universe. They just give you the rules for how to put them in different places with different velocities. This means that, in principle, if you had a sufficiently powerful computer, you could reconstruct any past state of the universe from its current state. The information about your grandmother, her thoughts, her memories, her unique neural patterns, hasn't been destroyed. It's been scattered throughout the universe in forms we can no longer easily access. When your grandmother died, her information didn't vanish. It dispersed. The arrangement of atoms that constituted her brain, the electromagnetic patterns that encoded her memories, the quantum states that made her unique, all of that information is still there, spread throughout the cosmic information network. It might sound crazy, Hossenfelder admits, but it's consistent with all that we currently know about the fundamental laws of physics. There are only two exceptions where information might be lost: black holes and quantum measurements. But these are unsolved problems in physics. For everything else, information is conserved absolutely. This means your grandmother exists in the same sense that a scattered jigsaw puzzle exists. All the pieces are still there. They're just arranged in a way that makes the original pattern impossible to reconstruct with current technology. This raises profound questions about consciousness, identity, and what it means to exist. If the past is real and information is conserved, what does this mean for personal identity and the continuity of consciousness? Our approach is this with characteristic directness. The information patterns that constituted your grandmother's consciousness still exist in the block universe. They're located at specific space-time coordinates. The moments when her brain was active, when her thoughts were flowing, when her consciousness was experiencing reality. From the block universe perspective, consciousness isn't something that starts and stops. It's something that exists at particular space-time locations. Your grandmother's consciousness doesn't exist now in the sense of your current temporal slice, but it does exist at its appropriate temporal coordinates. Our subjective experience of now makes it seem special, as Hossenfelder notes, but objectively all moments are equally real. This doesn't mean consciousness is immortal in a traditional sense. It means consciousness is timeless. The experience of being your grandmother with all her thoughts and feelings and memories exists eternally at its proper space-time location. Think about it this way. The number 7 doesn't become less real when you stop thinking about it. Mathematical objects exist timelessly. According to the block universe, consciousness patterns exist timelessly too. This has implications for how we think about death and loss. When someone dies, their consciousness doesn't get destroyed. It becomes inaccessible from our current temporal perspective. But it continues to exist at its own space-time coordinates. There is something timeless about the information that makes up us and everything else in the universe, Hossenfelder explains. And I think that's a really deep spiritual insight that we get directly from studying the foundations of physics. If the past still exists and information is conserved eternally, what does this mean for how we live our daily lives? How should this knowledge affect our relationships, our choices, our approach to loss and meaning? Our acknowledges this is where physics becomes deeply personal. It's one thing to look at the math and say, okay, this is how it works. It's another thing entirely to make sense of this in your everyday life. But she suggests this knowledge can be profoundly comforting. When you lose someone you love, traditional thinking says they're gone forever. But the block universe tells us their existence, their thoughts, experiences, and impact remains real at its proper space-time location. This doesn't mean you can interact with them in your current temporal slice, but it does mean their existence has a permanent, timeless reality that can never be erased. Consider how this changes your perspective on your own life. Every moment you're living right now is becoming part of the permanent structure of space-time. Your thoughts, your choices, your experiences are being written into the eternal information content of the universe. We are so much more than bags of atoms crawling around on a pale blue dot, Hossenfelder concludes. We're patterns of information that become part of the timeless structure of reality itself. This view also affects how we think about meaning and purpose. If traditional physics suggests we're temporary arrangements of matter in an indifferent universe, the block universe suggests we're permanent features of the cosmic information landscape. Your life isn't a brief flicker in cosmic darkness. It's a permanent thread in the eternal tapestry of space-time, connected to every other thread through the fundamental information conservation laws that govern reality. Many people find the block universe disturbing rather than comforting. They argue it makes life feel predetermined, meaningless, or emotionally cold. If everything already exists timelessly, what's the point of choice, effort, or emotional investment? Hossenfelder addresses these concerns head-on. The block universe doesn't mean your choices don't matter. It means your choices are part of the eternal structure of reality. The decisions you make, the relationships you build, the impact you have, these become permanent features of the space-time block. Free will might be redefined rather than eliminated. You're not free from the block structure of space-time, but you are free to determine what your part of that structure looks like. Some critics argue the block universe is just mathematical philosophy, not testable physics, but Hossenfelder points out that the relativistic effects that lead to the block universe are experimentally verified daily. GPS satellites require corrections for these effects. Particle accelerators observe time dilation. The physics is solid. Other critics worry that believing in the block universe leads to fatalism or moral indifference. But Hossenfelder argues the opposite. If your actions become permanent parts of reality's structure, they matter more, not less. The deepest objection is emotional. It doesn't feel like the past still exists. We can't access it. interact with it, or experience it. But Hossenfelder reminds us that our feelings aren't reliable guides to physical reality. Our intuitions evolved for survival on the African savanna, she notes, not for understanding the fundamental nature of space-time. So here you are, probably thinking about existence differently than you did 10 minutes ago. You started believing that the past is gone and only the present is real. Now you know that existence itself might be far more permanent and interconnected than human intuition suggests. Sabine Hossenfelder has shown us that if we trust physics, if we take Einstein's relativity and information conservation seriously, then the past doesn't disappear. Your grandmother's life, with all its thoughts and experiences and love, remains eternally real at its proper coordinates in space-time. Does this make death less final, less tragic? Hossenfelder would say it makes existence more meaningful, not less. I think this is a really deep spiritual insight that we get directly from studying the foundations of physics, she explains. The universe preserves information. The universe remembers. The patterns that made your grandmother unique are woven permanently into the fabric of reality itself. You're not a temporary arrangement of atoms destined for oblivion. You're part of the eternal information structure of the universe. Every thought you think, every choice you make, every moment you experience is becoming part of the timeless reality that makes up the space-time block. The past still exists because existence itself is more fundamental than time. Your life isn't happening in time. It's happening as time. You're not moving through space-time. You're part of how space-time is structured. And the most beautiful part? Everyone who has ever lived, everyone who ever will live, exists together in this four-dimensional block. Past, present, and future are united in a single, eternal, unbreakable structure of information and experience. Death isn't the end of existence. It's just the boundary of where existence can be accessed from any particular temporal perspective. But from the perspective of physics, from the perspective of the universe itself, nothing that has ever existed is ever truly lost.